Good evening, the Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And I haven't done this in a while, so we have a lot of stuff that has come and gone that I would have been ranting about. I have not been doing so due to, real life issues, work at home, illness, taking care of people, etc., etc., and just not having the time to sit around and vent my grievances of politics to the void. My wonderful void of those of you who actually watch this. But since I want to try to organize this just a little bit better than I have, so it's not just sort of a, rambling out into the ethers of anything that just comes into my mind, I'm going to try to organize this into 4 topics within a particular time frame, so that I can talk about these 4 topics and get done without it being the length of a movie. Maybe half the length of a movie. In any event. So I got 4 different topics I'm going to talk about. So topic number 1 that we will begin now is wanted to discuss the second attempt, or what we will consider the second attempt on former President Donald Trump's life at his golf course. The assailant, Ryan Rolfe, that had appeared, who had apparently had hung around the golf course for 12 hours. 10 to 12 hours, right? Yeah. From 2 a.m. up until the point where he went and got himself in position and then got himself caught. Not much I really want to talk about him, about the attempt or whatever. There was a lot of information out there that has been covered. The more I really want to talk about this is actually talk about the side conversation that I was having on the day with certain members of the group that I admin on Middle America, where a certain member of the group came out and pretty much knee-jerked reaction to it, saying that the deep state tried again, indicating that the first assassination attempt and this assassination attempt was both orchestrated by the deep state, this scary government, either the Biden administration or the intelligence community or anyone who is against Trump, right? I have some thoughts on that. But first, during that conversation, when I heard that conspiracy theory, I decided to upend the apple cart and just go, I don't know. It just, it does seem like it goes another route that perhaps this could be an inside thing, which, of course, made their heads explode because of my Trump derangement syndrome, that, of course, I would think that. Now, in full disclosure, reason why I said that was to counter that conspiracy theory with that conspiracy theory. I wanted to do a debate with him back and forth on it, but when the conversation came out, I was actually at work, and I wasn't able to get onto a phone interaction, FaceTime interaction to do so. I still wanted to do it. I still want to do it now, because actually I find those things fun. But it didn't turn out that way, and I was stuck at work, and it never came up again. But I do want to express why I do not think this is a deep state conspiracy. Deep space. that deep state was behind these attempts, and do sort of a alternate point of view on that while the time allotted of this particular subject. First of all, why this was I believe is not a deep state backed thing here. Ryan Rolfe, the perpetrator of this second attempt, is a moron. I cannot be nicer about this. This man had a criminal jacket for about 22 years, starting in 2002, mostly involving gun charges, some drugs, one time possessing a weapon of mass destruction. Okay. So already that's red flags on this being somebody that the deep state would have sent out to do a killing. point number two as to why this is not a deep state operation. He has a rather large social media footprint where not only the fact that, his political record goes back and forth, that he's not, nailed down Democrat, he's not a nailed down Republican. According to the histories, he had voted for Trump in 2016 and was disappointed. Whatever. He has donated to Democrats. He had voted in the midterms, or was it this coming primaries? Either way, he voted for the primaries for Democrats. However, he did plead with Ramaswamy to get together with Nikki Haley to form their own ticket to be an alternative towards Trump, which is also pretty interesting. Unfortunately, the only real political focus point that this guy has was being pro-Ukrainian, for the Ukrainian war with Russia. He tried himself to get involved. He even tried to get himself with the international, Foreign Legion, pretty much. It's an international merc group. But he couldn't cut it because first of all, his age at the time. Right now, he's about 58 years old and having no military experience. So he is militarily inept, and he just wasn't going to cut it for that. So he then tried to be a recruiter to get people to get involved in the Ukrainian war, and also get involved in the defense of Taiwan. His social media footprint, as I was talking about, him being on blast for being pro-Ukraine, being anti-Trump, and having pretty dramatic things to say involving the Ukrainian war, involving Putin, involving wanting to send a warhead with Putin's name on it to Russia, and various other things like that. The reason why I am saying that he's not a deep state agent is that he's too loud to be that. Now, here's my theory on this and including Tommy Boy in the first attempt. First of all, I never entertained the idea of Tommy Boy, that being an inside Trump job. Never thought of that at all. Why? It's because somebody died. And I don't even think Trump would want to be responsible for some sort of, in-school bullshit that would get somebody killed. Of course, it doesn't help, the motivations of him not giving a shit about the person dying while he was standing there, fist up, all in defiance. And of course, for those people who say he's so traumatized of being shot at, he was so traumatized, hours later he was trying to sell merchandise off of it. I should know, people in my group, some person in my group was trying to promote the t-shirt. So yeah, he's very traumatized. I'm sure he has cold sweats. So the first one, I believe, is completely, totally legit. Tommy Boy was out there he had no nebulous political reasons why he was out there, and in fact, outside of Trump, he had other names and dates and addresses he was going for, including Kamala Harris, the address of the DNC, Fannie Williams, and various other people of note. And according to Tommy Boy's message that he left on a Steam forum, which is the gaming group that people get on, social network and gamers, that this was his coming out party on his debut at Butler. The Warren actually thought he was going to survive Butler. Okay. Alright. But back to Ryan. He's a little too loud. And the reason why I say this is, and I want to try to use this kind of an analogy. Do you all know the movie The Godfather? Do you know what the term "go to the mattresses" mean? Now, in The Godfather, the Corleone family have hitmen, have a cadre of hitmen that carried out the ending of the five families at the behest of Michael Corleone at the end of the movie. These guys lived in the same place, essentially on mattresses where they slept. They had no names, they had no addresses, no one knew them. They came out of nowhere. They came when they were called. They executed what they needed to execute, and then they disappeared. Go to the mattresses means goes to the hitmen. Now, the deep state is, for people who believe in the boogeyman of the deep state, is not only the federal government, but also the federal intelligence community within our country. It has massive resources that if they were going to end somebody, it will not be... they will have kind of things handled rather professionally, rather quietly, where they would probably, do the execution, make sure as quiet as possible, and make sure the media is mum on it too. It would be in the middle of the night. Just... I don't think the deep state would put an operation like this against a former president using a 19-year-old kid who thinks he was going to make a name out of himself with assassinating people that he was going to promote himself, nor that this organization known as the Deep State was going to be hiring an assassin from the bargain basement, with a contract used with coupons. Flip the coin now. Those are the reasons why Ryan Routh and Tommy Boy, but Ryan Routh specifically, could not be a deep state, hired gun to take out Trump. And the flip side of the coin of the other conspiracy theory that I challenged with as to why, even though I don't believe it, it kind of makes sense that this would be an inside thing, is almost every reason why it was wrong to think that deep state would do it is actually right when you think it was a Trump plant. Follow me with this. In terms of the media footprint, wow, that's gold. That's gold. All the stuff that he railed about against Trump that you can find in social media, that gives you motivation. Pro-Ukraine, then we got to be anti-Ukraine, so that works just as well. Completely inept. A criminal, so you can get tough on crime. With this guy, just to show that as an example of past administrations and so forth about that. But when this guy was caught, he was caught lifting his rifle. That was seen by the Secret Service, even though the Secret Service didn't bother to comb this place for the past 10 to 12 hours, or they would have seen him. But nonetheless, they caught him while he was lifting his rifle, shot at him. He evaded. He got into his car. He got caught on the highway. He surrendered peacefully. He's now caught peacefully. Here's the thing. According to the FBI, according to the Secret Service, he raised his rifle when Trump was nowhere near his line of sight. He gave up his position. That was a spoiled position. So they got themselves done caught a sniper, an assassin, that raised his rifle when his target wasn't even in range, down the line of sight. He spoiled his shot. Because he doesn't know what he's doing. He's inept. But he spoiled his shot. Got caught. No one got hurt. Trump certainly didn't get hurt. And he was rather smug and rather smiling about his getting captured. And with Trump, with perceptually speaking, flailing and flagging in the back-to-back against Kamala Harris, maybe a stunt like that could be something to raise him up in the polls to get him feel all macho and manly, and people can be like defending him, saying how defiant he is, because that's what happened in the first assassination attempt. People, praised him for him being defiant. So, if you could pull off a safe assassination attempt where no one got hurt, and can make yourself look out to be a hero again, or make your political enemies seem responsible for that happening. If you are someone with no moral value, would you not actually do that? I don't know. Again, I don't necessarily believe it, but that is a stronger conspiracy theory case, which that makes a little bit more sense than the deep state getting an inept 58-year-old or a 19-year-old who was just trying to get it to look famous. I'm telling you, if the deep state was actually going to take somebody out, they would take someone out, and none of us would hear about it till it was long gone. And that ends that subject. See, I'm trying to keep myself on time frame. So, out with the assassination attempt, and in comes the continuing deterioration of Trump on the campaign trail, which we'll start discussing now. It seems that ever since his debate with Kamala Harris, whatever instances that you saw at rallies or in interviews where he started deteriorating a little bit, seems to be more and more prevalent now. And when I'm talking about deterioration, not only the mental and emotional control decline that he is on, but he diverges away from policy, even though people are begging and pleading with him, sometimes on camera, to stay on topic, stay on the policies, and he can't do it. He was completely rattled over the idea of Kamala Harris just snarking on his rallies and crowd sizes and people leaving. He couldn't get it out of his mind. So he talked about it. He talked about his crowds, talked about people never leaving his crowds. Sometimes he's talking about people never leaving his crowds when people are actually visually leaving his rallies. Leaving his crowds. There are some people who would suggest that people would admit to, we will come together all in a mass. So, like in the first 10 minutes, there'll be all mass. People will take the pictures and say, all the people that are here, that's fine. And then we're not obligated to stay, so people start trickling out after that first 10 minutes. They always start with the front end of a rally or an event where everyone's tailgating, everyone's having fun, or running in, all having their Trump swag and whatever, getting their interviews, getting their tinfoil out. But then, during it, towards the end, there's more and more seats and less people. I remember during the 2016 campaign, he dared the media to turn their cameras around so you can see the whole crowd. You don't hear him saying that, do we? And then now he's blaming, in the later rallies, where it is very noticeable that he cannot even deny noticing that there were fewer and fewer people at the crowd in these rallies, that he would go out and say, oh, that's Biden-Harris's fault. It's Biden-Harris's fault. It's totally their fault. We had 30,000 people outside. We had 50,000 people outside. But the Biden-Harris administration would not let us have the security for us. So we have to bring it down to this dinky little event where there's only 750 people showed up. It's all on them. It's not me because I'm very boring. And did I mention I have a beautiful body? He's been saying that lately. Ew. Anyway. But the thing is that It's not. I'm not going to say that this is happening in every single event. He went back to Butler to do a rally, and he got a crowd. He got a massive crowd, legit big crowd. Let's not lie. Let's not lie here, okay? And I'm not going to. He got a big crowd. There's nothing. There's nothing to snark about, and good for him. I mean, this is the place where he first got shot at, and he drew a big crowd. Great. His rhetoric's still shit. In fact, once again, he couldn't help himself. But beyond that, let's not say that a crowd is not there when the crowd is clearly there. It was for Butler times 2. Great. But here's the thing. For those rallies where people are leaving, they're not leaving during Trump speaking on policy or what he's going to do for them. They're leaving while he's continuing his Kamala rants. The gloom and doom, people get tired of that. It is a wasteland out there in terms of Trump, in terms of what Trump is trying to paint the picture here. The farther away that he is from any event that we can all Google and look at, the more he will elaborately bring out this imaginary fanciful reality that doesn't exist for them. How horrible things are, and everything is so horrible. Migrants are everywhere. Migrants are eating pets. Well, we'll get into that. I mean, we already got into that sometime in the last one I did, which was actually during his debate with Kamala. But no, people are getting tired of the show. See, something can be entertaining. Some hardcore fans can be entertained with the same thing over and over again, and they stick around. But some people are getting, yeah, I'm entertained. This is pretty funny shit, but what are you going to do for us? What are you going to do? What are you going to do for us economy-wise? How are you going to fix things? Tariffs? That's the only thing you're talking about. And you go back to William McKinley in the 1890s of how great and wonderful the tariffs are. That's the later end of the 19th century. We're in the 21st century. There's a little bit differences. And again, it's like people, I don't know. I'm not going to claim that I'm some economic wizard here that knows every facets of economics. But the basic simple fact of tariffs is that when you impose tariffs, especially on foreign companies, it is the function of it to discourage people from buying their products. How they discourage it is to hike up the prices of these products for the consumers. Who are the consumers? We are. We're the consumers. And in order for him to punish these companies, he's punishing the consumers who buy these products. That's great. See, someone who is uber rich like Trump, even though he's no longer really a billionaire, he doesn't have a problem with funding the bill if he wants it. If he wants to purchase something, he's going to purchase something without there being a sweat bubble or comparing and contrasting the prices, or if there was a trade-off between, buying food or buying medications. That is not a thought in his life. But that's fine. And that is like the only specific thing that he's actually said of what he would do. Tariffs. Anything else? No, just, concepts of plans, perhaps, right? No, he'll just make it better. He'll make it better than you ever had it before. Things, if I'm not president, things will get worse in levels of no matter, name the issue. It will be worse than you have ever believed. There will be no country anymore. It's gotten to the point where Trump has accused Kamala Harris of murder. Not directly, but may as well be. So every horrific thing under the sun, Trump will throw at them to scare the people to vote for him. Even though he says he's doing so well. For me, that's kind of that real flavor of desperation out of him is even turns my stomach. It's in sort of a down deep kind of feeling where he's wrong. We just almost implore him to admit to it, to not continue to lie, and to double down on the lie and double down on the lie and double down on the lie. But he can't stop himself. According to the documentation that was released of Jack Smith's case against him, and that not only that when they told him that Mike Pence's life was in danger, and he said, "So what?" He told people, his family, on Marine One, is that you keep fighting even if you lost. Just keep fighting, acknowledging that he lost, but still forcing reality to fit your narrative. I didn't lose. Unless I'll pound you into submission to make you admit that I won. Even recently, he said that he didn't win. That it was a rigged election. It was all rigged. He will never admit. While everybody else around him, for those sycophants like J.D. Vance, who will not admit either. But anyone else that peels away will admit that, yeah, he lost. And then they're dead to him, and they're dead to his followers. I'll always give Trump credit on being almost a savant when it comes to perception. This comes from somebody who spent decades trying to control his personal perception and his personal narrative. Going back to the days when he masqueraded himself as John Barron, who would send in letters to the New York newspapers bragging upon Trump's sexual conquests and how wonderful, how great guy he is. John Barron. If that wasn't somebody else, did Barron get his name out of John Barron? Did Melania cheat? No. No, but he was always been a master of controlling the narrative. Going back to the point of, The Apprentice. Or anytime he was on TV, or anytime his influence. Because you got to admit that the Donald Trump, persona was really big in the lifetimes of the rich and famous days of the go-go 80s. The art of the deal. So if he didn't run for president, he would be a figure, an icon that represented the 1980s, rich in excess. But he wanted to turn to politics. And bravado only gets you so far without real intense lying and people around you supporting that lie. But as it stands, and maybe the last bit of this before the alarm goes off, he just seems low energy now. Like, even when he does rallies, he just seems tired. He does meander. His words do slur. Sometimes he looks disheveled. Sometimes the orange, and it's not. And I know how people want to mock about the whole orange thing, and and try to say there's a cop out of people mentioning it. Dudettes. It's like there. There's the line where the orange is simply around the face, and all of a sudden, from that to his hairline is white. Why is he doing that? What is the purpose of that? I don't know. And if you get really close, look up when he does like ads on YouTube when he's doing a real close up ad. You see his face is all cracked. He looks like if you touch him, he will disintegrate. Yeah, but he's young and spry, right? I don't know, guys, but I'm sure for those who really have like an agenda that you think he's going to assist with you with, like politically wise, policy wise, and you are going to close your eyes to him falling apart in front of your eyes, that you're going to close your ears from him rambling incoherently, to saying nothing of policy, just anything you can say about Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or anything else. But if you think that assists your goals in terms of your own policies and you want to vote for that, vote for that. Fine. You make your compromises with yourself, with your family, with your friends, with anybody around you to justify it. But don't be surprised when people ask you why. Because oftentimes people you vote for, they do represent you. And I've gone into the past of how some people personally take that to heart, and they really defend him because they're defending themselves in the process. So ends that topic. Alright. Halfway done. Pretty much keeping myself in an organization. Cool. So, third topic on tap tonight is the vice president debate. The vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. I watched a bit of that. I was also at work, but I did watch a bit of that and I heard a bit of that. My initial opinion was that as far as performance, J.D. Vance was more polished, was more slick, was easy to... He was easy on the spot, and he came out not in his usual campaign mode as well, as much as normal, but he came out trying to be more friendly, more interactive, so forth. Tim Walz, on the other hand, did not look comfortable. I think he whiffed a few spots. He did not get punchy as people probably anticipated him to be or wanted him to be. Didn't really go into attack mode except for certain individual points. He did not look comfortable on the stage. He did not look polished, and he did not. When he got caught up in a discrepancy in terms of him saying that he was in China during the time of Tiananmen Square when he wasn't, but he was in the general area at the time of that conflict, of that issue, but not on that day. He didn't, well, not appropriately, but he didn't explain himself in a good enough manner to nod your head about, but he did admit to making an error with that, which he did admit to it. But in terms of performance, J.D. Vance won it. However, when it comes down to substance, that does wash away the advantage of J.D. Vance. It doesn't really assist in putting Tim Walz on top or making him win the debate per se, because I think performance still does matter. But it does negate Vance's advantage towards that, because in terms of substance and how they performed this interaction, J.D. Vance, even though he was smooth and good performer and this far better than Trump, spent the majority of all of his answers just turning it back on to Kamala Harris during and blaming her for the acts and actions during the Biden administration, saying it was the Kamala Harris administration. I don't think Biden's name was ever mentioned once. And Tim Walz not taking that, turning it around a little bit here and there, and actually speaking to the people in what you're trying to explain the contrast between, obviously, him and Vance and Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. What I actually think, after a few days has gone by and I was thinking about this debate, it wasn't Tim Walz's purpose to knock out J.D. Vance. I don't think it was. I think it was more important for Walz and Kamala Harris that Walz presents himself and introduces himself to the nation in this debate. And I think he actually did a good job. Those moments when he is not comfortable, that he stares into the camera like exasperated of some of the things that Vance says, it's not him being befuddled. It's not him stuttering. It's not him, losing track. It's him listening to something and giving a natural reaction to it. Like when people will make fun of his like bug eyes at moments, it's like, oh my God, this guy just said that. Any one of us will do that. That is an actual natural reaction. And that will play with people. Because as good of a performer as J.D. Vance was, the substance or lack thereof that he was producing in his responses made him look as slick as a car salesman. While J.D. Vance looked genuine. He looked like someone who was a social studies teacher. He looked like someone who was a coach in high school. He looked like he was your everyday Joe, everyday grandfather, everyday father. It is hard to gauge if the VP debate actually helped or hurt either side, because people will debate on if the if the vice presidential debates ever mattered. I can remember the one with Joe Biden and Ryan. I forgot his first name. Guy with a who think of publicity pictures of him in like bicycle shorts and Tim Ryan, I think, yeah. But I remember everyone remembers that VP debate when Joe Biden just burst out the malarkey on him. And there's been vice presidential debates in the past that people have taken notice with. That remember there's little moments of. There were moments in here too. Whereas the one bad moment for Tim Walz was the Tiananmen Square thing, where he didn't quite explain it as well as he could have. It's understandable. It's clarified what he meant, but he didn't. But at the time, it didn't come out that clean. So that is something like in retrospect, we can almost give a pass to, barely. But Tim Walz did nail Vance on if Trump won or lost the 2020 election, if he can say it. And he asked him directly to it, and Vance refused to talk about it because we're not talking about the past, we're talking about the future. I get tired of this kind of argument of like, we're not talking about the past. That was then, this is now. I see this in my social medias. If anyone brings up anything that Trump has said, is like, that was then, this is now, none of that matters now. And then goes and whines about the past histories of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. So, speaking of the past of them is okay, but don't bring up anything that Trump said in the past, because that's in the past. That doesn't matter anymore. Which kind of makes the point of, that means they think that Trump, whatever Trump said in the past, is irrelevant. He shouldn't have a past. Wipe the slate clean. It's only what he says today. until what he says today becomes yesterday. And then you ignore that, forget it, because this is the new day. So he's going to say something new. Follow that for 24 hours. In terms of this, like I said, I don't think it moves the needle, but it did, at least for Tim Wall's point, did what he needed it to do. He reintroduced himself to the American people, and people saw someone genuine, saw somebody optimistic, was hopeful. As much as he opposes Donald Trump and much as he opposes J.D. Vance, he wasn't going out there fire-breathing against Trump. You know, every answer was an anti-Trump slogan. He did talk about what they wanted to do. What they want to do in their new administration of a Harris-Walz administration. What they want to do for the people. All the people. Not just Democrats. Not loyalists, but everybody, for we're all Americans. I mean, he's trying to, you know, in the simple terms, they all come out to try to sell themselves. It seems for Trump and Vance, they want to sell themselves to the particular rabid niche, and you think that is enough to turn the day, as opposed to everybody else beyond this niche. Because I said before, yeah, you can get them to come to your rallies. You can get them to fill an auditorium, stadium, when they do. But you can't get them to fill the building or fill an arena, fill a football stadium. That's great. That's wonderful. You filled a room. That's great. You're so popular. That is one building. That is one arena in a city inside of a state. You didn't fill that building with a whole state worth of people. I'm sorry. Mr. Perception is reality. You think that big crowd represented everything all around and complain about how no one shows up to Kamala Harris rallies when they do. And if they didn't, so what? She's not complaining about it. She's not obsessed about it as you are. You're not seeing Democrats, because she had a small rally in Flint. A small rally. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm not here to deny that she had a small rally in Flint. No one is making any like bullshit about that. But that comes and goes. That happens. It's sometimes not a matter of how many people shows up, it's what you say to those people. But Trump and Vance wants to keep to their own niche. They're the rabid fan base that will believe anything they say. Or if they don't believe it, they will at least go with it because cheese. Better way to explain it than saying cheese. That they will want to back it up because I think that's a winning goal, winning possibility, that will get them to own the libs. We will go into a little bit more in the last section of this because I'll get there. But in terms of that, they are looking for their own niche. They're not trying to expand. They may sound like it. They may think they are. They're not trying to expand the goalpost here. It's still the same niche. While Tim Walz and Kamala Harris is garnering support from everyone. From both sides of the aisle. From people that you would not want necessarily to be like, oh, great, I have that endorsement. But, sometimes in terms of wanting to be someone for everybody, you have to be someone for everyone, meaning that someone shows up to support, you welcome them in. Regardless. Because half of politics is still compromise. The American genius that kept this country going from the Constitution up to the point of the Civil War till after the Civil War, from, the Reconstruction and then post-World War II from civil rights to our modern era, if you did not have compromise through these points of critical time periods in our country, we would not have a country now. And the laws that we have now wouldn't be there if we didn't have compromise. Compromise on policies, compromise on political opponents or political allies. Sometimes the deals that you make are good, sometimes the deals are horrible. Sometimes in order to get your personal agenda in the 1970s as a young senator like Joe Biden, you have to saddle up with racist shitbags talking about busing. And you have to verbally support that in order for them to support you on your own endeavors. That is compromise, and that is a bad part of the compromise, but nonetheless that happens. And that is one example of the myriad examples through our American history of such compromises being made. The Great Compromise of Henry Clay staved off civil war for 30 years, but it also raised the question that every time this territory was becoming a state, they had to ask themselves, are you going to be a free state or a slave state? You can be one, not the other. Choose. And then we will go accordingly. But in any event, last word on the VP debate. It was informative, and I think it was helpful for Tim Walz. It showed J.D. Vance has the ability to perform on stage in less than campaign mode, so he's not as dramatic. But he did do a good job. So we'll give it to him, and we'll just say the debate was a wash. Last subject that I'd like to go through is kind of a current event one. Hurricane Helena came and went last week. It did a multitude of devastations through Florida and the Carolinas and Georgia. As bad as that is, as the death toll now is 200 plus from this hurricane barreling through, as bad as that is, using it in politics is fucking worse. This harkens me back to COVID. When COVID was given the political spin. Now, I know some people want to claim, at least in the COVID part, that was Democrats doing that. First person that politicized that was Trump. Because he wanted to plaster his name on it. He put himself in front of there. He just decided to tell people because he wanted to talk about the economy more than a plague upon mankind at that time. So he was just like, oh, it's going to disappear by April when it gets warm. It's okay. Downplaying the effects, downplaying the numbers. We're not going to rehash everything, but that is an example of what it's like now. Because politics once again reared its ugly head in a natural disaster. And who brings it up as such? Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his media sycophantic gerbils. And J.D. Vance and anyone who is beholden to Trump, who get in front of a camera and misinterprets, misrepresents, lies, saying that people are not getting as much resources, that Biden and Harris are out to lunch in terms of this, that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, that money is not going to them, FEMA is not giving them all the money as they should, and that these are allocated was not done, that Biden was not on the phone with any of these governors, that they couldn't get him on the phone. It is stunning of these things being said, because they get refuted by the actual governors. In Georgia, Brian Kemp had to come out and say, no, Biden was on the phone with me all the time. He was asking me, what can I do? What do you need to assistance? Well, how can I help you? When the storm was coming, he signed a disaster relief to make sure they would get the stuff they needed. That they get the food, the equipment, be able to get repairs done. There is within the package of the FEMA disaster relief was that everyone that would get affected by Helena was going to get $750. Now, Trump company, Trumpco, decided to say, that's all they're getting. You're only getting that. You're not getting more. Fuck you. That's wrong. Because that was the immediate payment given immediately. More was coming. More is coming. Now, people are talking about how much FEMA did not have enough for this. And they're claiming that they didn't have enough because FEMA was also paying for migrants. Here's the thing about that. What they're talking about is actually another facet of FEMA that was assisting in migrant shelters, etc. The money that was going there had nothing to do with the money that goes to disaster relief. It is not as if FEMA, that all the money that goes to FEMA, it just goes into one big jackpot pot. And they just scoop out the money and go wherever they need to. And that's it. It's not as if it's allocated and separated. Right? So whatever monies that was taken to assisting migrants has nothing to do with the disaster relief that is supposed to help people. And according to FEMA, they do have enough to help with this storm, with help the survivors of this storm. The governors back FEMA, back the Biden-Harris administration. If you want to complain about anybody in the government, complain from Congress. They have the purse strings. Complain about the 98 Republicans. Some of those Republicans represented by states that were hit by Helena that voted against FEMA money, disaster relief funds to be increased. Fortunately, it passed. So $20 billion more was added to the pot. They still need a lot more, right? But shame on them. Shame on them. Trump, Vance, all of them, for using a natural disaster like that for their politics. It's the same thing as when they use the migrants for their politics. What they did to the people of Springfield, Ohio, both the residents who've been there and those new residents who are migrants who's been there since the Trump fucking administration in 2018. That's right, folks. Oh, they neglected to tell you this? That the first migrants that arrived in Springfield, Ohio, was not from the Biden-Harris administration. It was not from the open borders, that they're not illegals, that they were protected migrants, legal status, that came during the Trump administration. They came from the offer of jobs. Now, in terms of Springfield, Ohio, and the association of the residents that are already there, as opposed to the migrants that came and became part of their community, are there problems when there's an influx of so many people in a relative small town? Of course there is. But we are hearing about this now. We're hearing about this during election time. So don't whine to me about, Jack Smith's evidence being put out. Oh, that's election interference. You're putting out this strife, this melodrama of migrant Haitians in Ohio, how they're destroyed the city. It's all destroyed. It's all wasteland. Aurora, Colorado, destroyed. Springfield, destroyed. A member of my... it's funny, a member of Middle America, of the group that I admin on, that is run by Venisori. Check Venisori out on YouTube. He does political posts as well as he does music reviews. He and his wife are awesome people. Check them out, please. But another admin associate of Middle America actually lives by Springfield, goes to Springfield often. Somehow it doesn't look like a Mad Max wasteland. Nor does it look like what your stereotypical ignorant, quasi-racist, quasi-stereotypical mind would think of Port-au-Prince. They're eating the dogs and cats. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. You know what the Haitian migrants that have settled there for the past 4 or 5 years, a lot of them own their own businesses. They're holding down jobs. They're living there. They're not homeless. There is no reason for anyone to be eating any animals. But again, much like Helena, this is an issue that came out during election time. So they're the evil devil people that Kamala Harris has brought here. They did not come during the Biden-Harris administration. This is not an immigration. This is not an illegal immigration bullshit. This is protected people. But this is an issue to scare people to vote for Trump. Because when Kamala Harris was first tapped to being the Democratic nominee, when she took the baton in the relay race that Joe Biden started with, but Kamala Harris is going to finish. Donald Trump and a lot of his social medias really put out some really dark shit in terms of what he's going to do. He's going to protect you. He's going to protect all your mothers, all your sisters, all your daughters, all your wives. When he wins the presidency, he will protect them from the dark people. It doesn't say dark people, but if you see certain of his social posts where they do the pictures of like, this is what Trump administration world's going to look like here, and everyone's all happy and smile and vaguely white, and then it's if he doesn't win, it's like the stereotypical black slum or stereotypical Hispanic slum, or a picture of maybe some street down in actual Liberia or Venezuela, or I'm sure places like this that are actually nice, they'll never show pictures of. No. We have to show the pictures of despotic, despair, horrible wastelands, because that's going to happen if you don't vote for Donald Trump. And this kind of thinking even goes beyond Trump, and it goes beyond his political gerbils that associates with him. This goes to the medias that also support him, because in the recent days, we've been hearing about the longshoremen strike. Fox News was putting up on the longshoremen strike that this was going to be a pretty significant strike up and down the East Coast, through the Gulf of Mexico to the East Coast. This was going to be really bad for the economy during the time of Biden-Harris. So wow, naturally Fox News is going to be all over this. So they get the head of the longshoremen union, and they want to talk about why they're striking and so forth, and try to get them to dig into the Biden administration. Unfortunately, the man in charge of the longshoremen gave credit to the department heads of the Biden-Harris administration that they were associating with. They gave credit to Biden and to Harris and to their representatives that was interacting with them. They had no negative thoughts towards them. They were talking about the owners of the companies. people like Trump. But didn't mention him. That wasn't even involved in this conversation. And Fox News had to because this was live, so they had to run with this. Well, this guy was praising Biden, and even denigrated Fox News for trying to spin it around the other way on camera to the person. And when it came to be that the longshoremen was going to suspend their strike till January, oh, Fox News pouted. Laura Ingraham pouted. This might be a good thing now, but for the voters, this is a really bad thing. Why? Why? Because there isn't another horror to our economy, to our current events, that you can't exploit and to point your finger at Biden and, more importantly, to Harris, because somehow as vice president, she was involved in all this, and try to promote Trump over this, that this is another chaotic moment that is being only done, that could only possibly happen under Biden. Could never happen under Trump. Yeah. One last thing, and I'm going to go a little over time in this, so we're going to hear the thing off, but I just want to say this one last thing. When it comes to Donald Trump actually, blaming Biden and his administration for the response or lack of response, or the less capable responses of what's going on with Helena, that is very fucking funny. Because when it comes to the actual presidential history of a president not doing as much as he could, or didn't want to do as much as he could during a disaster event, it's not Biden that has a history of that. It's Donald fucking Trump. 2017, Hurricane Matthew came to our shores and hammered North Carolina. North Carolina asked for aid, disaster relief, specific amount to assist in the rebuilding after that storm. Donald Trump gave them only 1% of what they were asking. Really? When the wildfires were happening in California, he didn't want to give any disaster relief to them. It took Trump staffers to show him voter data in Orange County that there are Trump voters out there before he decided to give disaster relief. And then he went over and he talked about how people should be sweeping up. People should be sweeping the ground so there wouldn't be any fires. That's his brilliant genius at work. See, I would say something highbrowed and say the hubris of the man, but I think, he wouldn't know what the word means. So I'll just say the balls. The teeny, tiny, little pearl balls of him. To once again project his own sins on the other side. And doing that in this situation. He wouldn't help California until he found out there were Trump supporters. Only gave 1% of what was needed in North Carolina after Hurricane Matthew. Joe Biden signed the disaster relief before the storm hit. No one had to show him voter data of people in Florida or Georgia or South Carolina or North Carolina. He did it anyway. He did it. Not only the fact that he's a decent human being, but it was not a thought in his mind to not do it. Because it's a responsibility of the President of the United States to be responsible for every United States citizen, regardless of being a Democrat, regardless of being a Republican. regardless if they're going to ever vote for him or not. It doesn't matter. It only mattered to Trump. We're getting down to the wire. We are officially under a month. We're getting more and more dramatic in these back and forths. Here's our October, so maybe there'll be an October surprise. If you vote for Kamala Harris, cool. If you vote for Donald Trump, cool. Just own your vote. Step up for your vote. But if Kamala Harris loses and she concedes and Donald Trump is once again President of the United States, own it. I who suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. Donald Trump becomes president again? He will be my president. That will not be denied. I will still say, as I always say, that he is an unqualified, disqualified piece of shit. But nonetheless, he will be president. And I will be no less diligent in pointing out every fucking moronic thing that is harming people by whatever he does. Everything he tries to push, I will always look for the thing that he hides. The horrible thing that throughout his presidency that I've talked about, the horrible thing that he wants you to pay attention to, which is usually goes on the news and so forth, so that you get outraged by this, so you don't notice the really legitly policy-driven bad thing that's back here that you don't notice because you're too busy worrying about this right here. Look at my previous videos. You'll hear me say that multiple times. On the flip side, Donald Trump loses. Are you going to follow him down the rabbit hole saying, yes, that yet again it dumb got stole? It dumb got stole. Election interference. Election interference. That is a catch-all phrase. I would like someone to actually give me a definition of election interference, because as far as my simple mind goes, election interference is something or someone actually preventing you from voting, interfering in your process to vote. Telling you shit isn't election interference. If you were convinced by Russia bots not to vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016, that along the lines is on you. That is not like them switching voter machines, which didn't happen in 2016. But somehow you believe in 2020 that had happened to your precious Trump. Which I once again remind you, humbly, that there was no real point of there being that type of election fraud happening to Trump for Biden if that also didn't affect the down ballots. You only objected to Trump losing and thinking that was fraud, but the rest of the ballot, that was okay? So for all the Republicans that won, that they didn't got them stole, that was not fraud? I'll remind you again, for people who lack civics. A president with a contested government with narrow, thin majorities can't get policies done. So if there was an election fraud in 2020, they would also affect the down ballots so that a president can be effective, that his government can be effective to push policies. Sometimes it's a miracle of what Joe Biden was able to push in his 4 years, given the contested nature of his government. But it would have been a lot better. Be that as it may. What will happen in 2024? We will find out. All right. Except for the end, I think I did a pretty good job in trying to hold this all together. The ranter rants because the urge to rant is always rising, and I will be back at some political outrage or whatever. Stay safe, everyone.